One of my favorite stories in the Bible is the story of Joseph, and it's chronicled beginning in Genesis 37. And you probably know it. It's a familiar story. But in it, Joseph begins by him receiving two dreams from God about his destiny, the purposes and plans that God has for him, and they're good purposes and plans. And so, as you know, Joseph unfortunately goes off and tells his family. They don't respond so well to him. They're offended. And so what happens is they throw him in a pit, sell him into slavery. And from there he goes down, he's sent to Egypt, he's bought by Potiphar, and he serves in Potiphar's house. And he does well, he excels, he rises up and rules over all of Potiphar's household. But he's betrayed by Potiphar's wife at that point. And as a result, he gets sent to prison. At which time he goes and reaches out to the cupbearer and the baker, and they were from the king, and he ministered to him, and he gave him interpretation of their dream. And the cupbearer got restored to his role with the king, but guess what? It says the cupbearer forgot Joseph. Well, a couple years later, Joseph's called upon by the Pharaoh to interpret a dream. He correctly interprets it, and he's put in charge of all of Egypt to save them from famine, upon which he also saves Israel. Now, if you had intersected Joseph at any point in time at the pit, the Potiphar's house, prison, and said, "Hey, Joe, how's it going right now? How's that dream working out?" He would have said, "Horrible. I've been betrayed by my family. I'm thrown in a pit, sold into slavery. I'm serving Pharaoh, another man's house and another man's dream in a faraway kingdom. Or, I'm in prison and I can't even get out and I don't have any freedom at all." If you intersected him at that point, you would have said, "Not going so well." But God is the God of the process. Because, if he hadn't been put in a pit and sold into slavery, he never would have left Israel. He had everything he needed. So he would have been planted there and he wouldn't be placed in the proper place for his destiny to be fulfilled. If he hadn't been put in Potiphar's house, he never would have learned how to rule over Egypt in his future destiny. He learned another culture and how to rule in that culture. And if he hadn't been put in prison, he never would have had his destiny met through meeting Pharaoh. So you see, God is the God of the process. He's always preparing our character and our capability for our destiny. So the reason I love this story the most is at the end, Joseph is then reunited with his brothers, and he's looking across from them, and he says to them, "You know what? You sold me, but God sent me." You see, he had gained God's perspective. He didn't see things through human eyes. He had gained God's perspective. And he knew this truth, that even when circumstances don't look like God is for us and they're lining up for us, even in those moments, God is for us. He's working out his better than plan for you and for me. So some of you right now may feel like, you're in a pit. You've been betrayed by those close to you. Or maybe you feel like you're in Potiphar's house where you're building somebody else's dream. It's not the dream of your heart. Or maybe you're in prison, where you're trapped and you're waiting for God to move, where, you've had that cupbearer moment and you thought it was so close, but it didn't happen. And what I would say to you is that just remember that God is always at work. He's always working all things together for good, that he is the sovereign God over the circumstances, and he's going to work them ultimately for his glory and for your good. So I would say, lean in and let God reveal himself as the God who is for you and who will lead you through these circumstances and who will bring you into everything he's promised in terms of the purposes he's planted in your heart and your own destiny.